Hi, welcome to my podcast. My name is Erica, and I live on the southwest coast of Florida. And this is where I talk about my crafting and scream into the void. um, I I don't really have a lot to talk about this week. I've been pretty dedicated to my cross stitch, just like last week. And it's May. That happens. Stitch mania kind of takes over, and all I've wanted to do is cross stitch, and that was a happy marriage, so that's all I've been doing. I did actually get some spinning done today, so it's the same stuff, but I'll show it anyway. Talk about what I'm planning on spinning next. And yeah, I kind of do it all. I'm a multi-craftual fiber artist. I knit, crochet, spin, weave, cross stitch. I've recently taken up black work embroidery, which is just another form of embroidery, but I consider it separate from cross stitch. I'm thinking about trying my hand again at tatting, which is a lace making technique using knots. And every time I go to the craft store, I think about those macrame kits. So we'll see what happens there. I have a cousin that does a lot of macrame, and every time I see her pictures, I want to do it. But let's just jump in. Knitting. I have not knitted a stitch in close to a month. I don't really want to. I'm not, like, my knitting mojo is kind of gone. But I feel guilty about it, so I feel like I should knit something. And I can't make myself start something new because I have so many works in progress. And I can't decide which work in progress I want to work on, so then I kind of stop and pick up a different craft because I don't want to deal with it. It's a terrible habit. My spinning group is doing a knit along, and they're all using their hand spun, and I haven't even picked which hand spun I want to use for the knit along, so I certainly haven't started the project. I think I've got one of the colors picked. I need to go through my stash and decide what would go well with it for the project. It's a shawl called Flotini, and it's a 2-color design with short row like leaves in it. It's really pretty. I just need to pick what yarn I want to use, and I do want to try to use hand spun because this is my spinning group that's doing the knit along, and they're all using their hand spun, and I really should knit some of my hand spun. It's amazing how I've managed to keep spinning and knitting separate when the whole point of spinning is to make yarn, and I don't do anything with that yarn. It's an interesting problem. So yeah, knitting, not really done much. Crochet, I actually tried starting a new project. The Crochet Crowd, Michael Selleck at the Crochet Crowd came out with a stuffy pattern called the Fat Cat, and it's just a big round huggable ball that's supposed to look like a cat, and it is made out of Bernat velvet in 2 colors. So this is vintage teal. It is teal. It looks kind of gray on my screen here, but I promise there's a little hints of blue-green to it. It's just very pale. And then this one is called Velvet Teal. So they're both teals, they're just different shades, and I don't know if it's gonna come through. But it calls for a D hook, and as I've discussed before, I'm notoriously tight when I crochet. So I'm using an F hook, and I started it, and I got about 6 rounds in and just ripped it out. This stuff, and I don't know, I can't say for sure that this is because of the yarn or because of me. I wouldn't say I'm a novice, but I'm not a really great experienced crocheter, and I really need to be able to see my stitches. And this is very, very hard to see your stitches on. So I ended up losing track of where I was, and I couldn't count my stitches, so I couldn't find where I was, and I thought, this isn't working for me. I ripped it all out, so it's all wrapped up again. And I dug out, this is a split ring stitch marker, and I'm going to start marking the first stitch of each round in the hope that that will help keep me aware of where I am in the pattern. I still can't necessarily see the stitches though, so if I don't know for certain I'm putting the hook in the right place when I go to make new stitches. And I'm going to try again. We'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll have more of it to show you next week. I don't think it would take me very long to make it if I can get a good rhythm going and I can properly count it. I loved the fabric. I mean, the disc I made was only about this big before I ripped it out. I loved the fabric. This works up very soft. It's just, it would be the most amazing huggable stuffy, and so I hope that I can make that work out. I actually have 2 more skeins of this burlap velvet in a pink and like a maroon color, and that was for another of the Crochet Crowd projects. It's supposed to be a Valentine teddy or something like that, but it's a teddy bear, and I was looking forward to working on that, but I haven't started it yet, and this is the first time I've worked with the velvet yarn, and I just don't know. I mean, it's hard not being able to see my stitches. Maybe I would do better if I was knitting something with this, but then I wouldn't get to make the patterns that I picked out the yarn for in the first place, so we'll see what I do with those. Spinning, I'm still working on that Rambouillet, 100% Rambouillet from Fierce Fibers. This is all I have left. I'm into the second half of the braids, so I have less than 2 ounces here. But this is it. This is all that's left. There's not much. This is probably maybe 8 hours worth of spinning, and I'll have the single done. I just need to do it. I got about 2 hours of spinning in this morning with my local spinning group. We've been meeting over Zoom, and I got a lot done during that, but this is all I have left. Isn't it pretty? I love it so much. It's called Fairy Forest. This is from Fierce Fibers. I think they're out of the Pacific Northwest somewhere. I don't know if they're in Portland or Seattle or something like that, but they're out there. Just lots of, you know, earth colors, but pastel because fairies. I don't know. It makes sense to me. I love the color. As is the case with a lot of pastels, the colors are becoming more vibrant in the spin. They're more concentrated. I don't know what they're going to do when I apply it. I finally made the executive decision on how I'm going to apply it. I had split the braids so that I could do a true 2-ply. But I hate barber poling. Unless I'm doing it deliberately, and I was really afraid that those colors would muddy a lot and I wouldn't get the beauty out of it that I see in the braid. So I've decided to chain ply it. That's sometimes called Navajo plying, where you take a single and you basically do a crochet chain while you're letting the twist in, and it gives you a 3-ply, but it keeps the colors together as much as you can. So you don't really get any barber poling. The only downside is because it's a 3-ply, I'm not going to get as much yardage as if I had made a 2-ply. So, you know, there's things to consider there. I hope if I get like 400 yards, I could actually use it for that knitting pattern that my spinning group is doing. Well, if that's not incentive to get this done, I don't know what is. But I've already picked out the fiber I want to spin next. I am a member of an initiative called Shave 'em to Save 'em, and it is part of the American Livestock Conservancy. They have this program where they're trying to encourage fiber artists to craft with the wool from rare breeds of sheep. And by rare breeds, they mean the animals that are decreasing in number. Let's say when you go to spin and you buy fiber, it's really easy to get merino. It's really easy to get blue-faced Leicester. What else? There's one that starts with a P that I can't come up with right now. There's Polworth, Corriedale. These are all breeds that are widely available as spinning fiber, and a lot of people are raising them. It's easy to get. But other breeds of sheep, they never really, some of them simply weren't bred into existence for the purpose of fiber. They were meat sheep, so they're not necessarily meant for spinning anyway, for lots of reasons. But some of these breeds are just, smaller population breeds to begin with for reasons of how they came to be. But their idea here is to encourage knowledge of these breeds, encourage people to raise these breeds, to preserve these breeds. So we have Shave 'em to Save 'em, and Shave 'em to Save 'em, the whole idea is, encourage people to raise the sheep and encourage people to buy the fleeces, so that there's a market for them, and hopefully that increases the size of the flocks, the breed's population. And what they do is as a spinner, it's a 3-year program. It started in 2019 and it goes through 2021. And the idea is we all pay into the program. It's $15 for the whole thing, and they send you this passport, and they send you, there's a pin and, things like that. And then for every 5 breeds that you spin, you can knit with it. Like, you could actually buy yarn that's already been made into yarn and then knit with it. Some people are taking the fleece and just doing like felted projects, needle felting, wet felting, all kinds of things like that. So spinning's not the requirement, it's just how I came to this. And you post your projects, like, look, I finished my breed. For every 5 that you do, you can actually get prizes. And I have acquired fiber from 11 different breeds. I haven't finished spinning them, so I haven't applied for any of my prizes yet, but you get this passport, and it lists all the different breeds that are on the, I guess we'll call them the endangered list, for various reasons, and they're categorized. Critical means that there's just not any left. And if you look, you've probably never heard of Florida Cracker or Gulf Coast Native, Hog Island, Santa Cruz. They live in very, very small areas. They originated in very small areas. Santa Cruz, Santa Cruz Island in California, that's where that sheep developed. Sheep got left out there, and they just did their own thing for a little while because there were no people crossbreeding them. They weren't affected by sheep from the mainland because they were isolated. And it's the same with these Florida ones. The Florida Cracker and the Gulf Coast Native are both breeds that when Spain owned Florida, they brought sheep, and then the sheep got left behind. They did their own thing, and somehow became 2 distinct breeds. I don't know if one's more of a North Florida thing versus a South Florida thing. But there's that Hog Island, same thing. It's an island. The sheep that were there got completely isolated from other populations. So they're just small breeds to begin with. They're considered critical because their population is really, really small, and they're not the first thing people grab when they want to spin, or even to eat meat. Americans don't seem to be big on eating sheep anyway. Mutton, right? Or, lamb more so, I guess. I'm a vegetarian. What do I know? But you can see, so we've got critical, we've got the threatened ones. Some of those breeds are British, Some of them are from different countries. I know caracal, I think, is caracal, American caracal. So it's Navajo churro is from South America. Well, actually, it might be from North America. Now that I think about it, it's probably like Mexico, southern central states, that sort of thing. There's the watch list, so they're not as bad. And then there's the recovering. They were in worse shape, but they're doing better now. More people are raising them. There's a lot more of them available. I know a lady in Indiana. I think she only has Shetland sheep. So the Shetland sheeps are doing quite well. So when you order a breed, you get a sticker, lists the breed, who you bought it from, the date you bought it from them, and you can stick it on their page. It tells you what country they come from, the micron count, which is how small the fibers are, its status, and you can put in information about your project, and then you just stick your sticker right there, because it's a passport. And this is my Black Walsh Mountain sticker. I actually did that one. That one's finished. I have to wind it off, wash it, thwack it. You know, I'll do all the things that you do to yarn when you're done spinning it. But I've got a lot of Shetland. I actually bought a fleece. I bought 2 fleeces. Well, 1.5. Friend of mine who's also doing this program, we got a fleece from her and we split it, and then I got a separate one, so I have 2 Shetland stickers from her. That's the lady I told you about in Indiana. But this is the whole program. There's 30 breeds? I think there's 30. I'm not going to count it right now. I think there's 30. And they announced in the Facebook group for this program the other day that another breed has been added to the endangered list. I'm not sure what their status is, if they're threatened. I don't know. But they've been added to the conservancy list. So it hasn't been determined, as far as I know, whether or not they're going to add it to the passport program, like mail out new pages for us or anything. We just, the only rule really is that we acquire these fibers from fiber providers that are registered with the Conservancy, the Livestock Conservancy. The Livestock Conservancy just doesn't do just sheep. They've got chickens and turkeys and all kind, livestock, different, and their whole plan is to preserve biologic diversity. One of the problems that we have in food supply is that, you get one breed of something eventually, and that's all you use for, whatever the product is, and you miss out on different nutrients, different vitamins, because you don't have that variety in your food. They talk about that a lot with milk production. In the United States, a lot of milk is, dairy farms, they use Holstein cows. That's great. They produce a lot of milk when they're induced to do so. But it has one lactose profile, and a lot of people are lactose intolerant. There's been kind of a push. You're seeing a lot of Jersey cow milk showing up on the market now. It has a different lactose profile. It has a different kind of lactose, and some people who are lactose intolerant can actually tolerate Jersey cow milk over Holstein milk, and it just opens up a whole new market, and because the profiles are different, you're getting different nutritional profiles to it. So it's good to have variety. And I mean, I don't eat meat. I barely drink milk. No, I don't drink milk at all, actually. And it's not as important to me, but when I have drank milk in the past, I definitely notice a difference in how I feel. My skin breaks out a lot when I eat dairy. Doesn't do that as much if I'm drinking Jersey cow milk. But I mean, that's just me, and it's anecdotal. Anyway, their whole job is preserving animal breeds and different kinds of, chickens. God, how many varieties of chickens are there? They're trying to keep the different varieties of chickens around, because biological diversity is really important. And even as a vegetarian, I understand that. So, anyway, my next project, I decided to go back to my heritage breeds, my Shave 'em to Save 'em projects. And so when I get done with that fairy forest and I let it sit for a bit, I have 4 ounces of Shropshire. And Shropshire is one of the watch list ones, so it's not super endangered, but it's on the list. And so it's very squishy. I mean, we're talking please don't squeeze the Charmin. It's very, very squishy. It has a very short staple. And by that I mean the length of each individual hair is quite short. See, there's a staple. A staple is when you go to shear a sheep, the length you get from where it's cut to the tip of the hair. So this is very short, and you can see it's kind of springy. Before it was processed, it probably had a serious amount of lock, like curls to it. But in the processing to turn it into roving, it's got a nice spring to it. I'm looking forward to spinning this. It's not super soft. It's just very springy. It kind of reminds me of dryer lint, honestly, which I've always wanted to try spinning because I think it would be an interesting product. But I think it's going to be a really nice springy yarn. I bet it would look really good with cables if I was to knit with it and do like cable crosses and stuff. I have a feeling that it would pop really well, and there'd be really good stitch definition, I think. So we'll give that a try. Obviously it's undyed. I have made no decisions whatsoever about whether or not I'm going to dye any of these. I certainly could. None of the breeds are, they're not all white. This one happens to be. Certain breeds, I know the Navajo Churro comes in like 6 different natural colors. The animal just has different colored hair. My Jacob is called Lilac. The color's called Lilac. He's got lots of white, but he's got these dark gray, almost like purpley gray patches, and then when you spin it out, you get this really beautiful pale gray. The Black Walsh Mountain, it's black. As far as I know, it only comes in that color, but that's that breed. The Florida Cracker, I have some, I think the stuff I bought from a provider is white. But I've seen it, there's a local place around here called Echo, and it's Global Farm kind of thing. And they're raising sheep over there, and they happen to have, their sheep are mostly Florida Cracker. It's not a purebred situation, they just have sheep. And they're not a fiber provider, so anything I get from them I can't count towards this. But their sheep fiber, it's got this almost, it's yellow. And it's not from being dirty or anything, it's just this really pale, buttery yellow. And it's beautiful, but it's the natural color that it comes in, and it's really lovely to spin. It's a shame they're not a member of the Conservancy because I have a lot of it. Yeah, so that's the program. Next up is Shropshire. I've done my Dorset Horn, and I've done the Black Walsh Mountain. They just need to be wound off, measured, washed, all of that stuff that you do with yarn that you spin yourself. And, oops, dropped a card. I'll get it later. So, moving on. I don't have any weaving going. I have a tabletop loom that my cats like to use basically as a cat bed. They sit in between the different railings of it. It's not warped up, there's nothing on it, so it's not a problem, but they're going to be really sad when I decide I want to weave something with it. So that's my weaving. So on to cross stitch. As I mentioned, it's May, Stitch Mania. All I want to do is cross stitch. It happens to be Stitch Mania. I'm not really following the prompts. I'm not doing a new start every day because frankly that would be insane even for me. I have started a couple of new things, and I'm just working through some whips here and there. I came across a whip. I think I used my app to tell me to stitch this one, and I realized I was actually quite a bit into it, and it probably wouldn't take me long to finish. So I opted to kind of focus on it. This is, oh, and it's in a frame. Let me take this off here so I can actually show you the whole pattern. This is Merry and Bright from the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery, and it's just this one rectangular pattern. There's a bonus like Christmas ornament pattern you stitch down here on the fabric, but it was done in 2 clues, and the second clue went to about here. The first clue went to about here. So I've done all of the first clue, and I'm working on the second now. I got the border all done, and I pulled the green out, and I got it continued, like there's like a string of Christmas lights, and I pulled that out and I did the string. I did the quasi confetti, there's a tree here, and then I started filling in Bright. I don't know how well you can tell, but the words Merry and Bright are done in a hand-dyed thread from Weeks Dye Works. The colorway is Grapefruit. I don't remember the number offhand, but it's got this lovely kind of tonal effect that happens when you stitch each cross together. Normally when you're doing, like you're using DMC or something, you just go half stitch, for the whole row, and then you cross them back. You don't do that with hand-dyed floss. I mean, you can. I don't recommend it. You want to do each X. Go this way, then cross it. This way, cross it. This way, cross it for each stitch. Which does slow you down, I will admit, but it gives you that tonal look. If you do it like you would stitch anything else, it mutes those colors a little bit. You don't get as much of a tonal effect. So it's not, if you've got something super variegated, it's not going to be that big of a deal necessarily. It's just going to be more sporadically colored. But when you've got a subtle tonal like that, you're going to lose some of the shading if you do the long half stitch and then cross it back. Got 2 needle minders on here. The reason I've got 2 needle minders, one is obviously for my needle, and this is the one that was designed to go with this pattern specifically. This was the Christmas Club from 2 or 3 years ago at the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery. This one I just had it handy. When I have the clamp on here and I've got all this extra fabric, I roll it up and I kind of fold it there, and then I use this to hold it in place. So that's why that's there. But I'm making decent progress with it. I've kind of gotten to the point where I'm trying to go one color at a time. So right now the focus is the hand-dyed. Get that word in there. And then I've stitched all of, most of the dark green. There's a little bit over here. There's another person. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do the red, the pink. Like, I'm just going to go like color by color. And try to get that finished, and then set up. I'm gonna go ahead and just go right into the ornament that goes underneath it. It's a bonus pattern, but I'm gonna go ahead and just do it, and then that way I can wash it, iron it, you know, do the things you do with a project, and that way I have this like Ziploc bag that I put all my finished things in until I decide how I'm going to frame them. Oh, I just realized I bought a frame. I'll go on to the next project. You remember my Cecine Pazulun, my Death Star pattern? I found a 5-inch embroidery hoop, a wooden one, and it is just the right size to frame that piece. I still need to wash it and iron it and everything like that. I wish I had like an extra 1/2 inch on the top and the bottom of the fabric to make it really snug in the hoop, but it's gonna work and it's gonna be beautiful, and I didn't bring it in here, so I will do that next week so you guys can see it. I'm not gonna get up and look for it. I haven't figured out how to edit my videos yet, so we'll hold off on trying to be fancy. So that was Merry and Bright by Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery. The other Frosted Pumpkin pattern, this was a new start. I started it 2 days ago when I got the hand-dyed Weeks Dye Works in the mail. We were encouraged to do this pattern. It's just a random stitch along. Cinco de Mayo was coming up, and it seemed like a good idea at the time to do a stitch along. It's one of their pen pals. This is called Piñata Party. And I happen to have the fabric that it calls for mostly. I have the color. It calls for the crystal cashel, which is the one that has the like iridescent metallic fibers in it so it sparkles. I just have the regular cashel linen, 28 count. The color is Sprite, and it's from Picture This Plus, so I already had the fabric. I needed to order this specialty thread. We were encouraged to stitch from Stash, but I thought, I don't want to. So I ordered a skein from 123 Stitch, and when it got here, I immediately started stitching it. So I did the whole border. The Pen Pals patterns look like little stamps, and they're nice little potato chip stitching. So I imagine I will finish this really quickly. I started it up in the corner of the fabric. I hope I gave myself enough space to do some framing with it, or I'm not sure how I want to finish it. But then I have the rest of this fabric that I can use for other small projects. So that was kind of the goal there, instead of centering it and then having all this fabric wasted. The needle minder I chose for this is from Snarky Crafter Designs. I'm moving things here. I don't know if you can see that. Please focus. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to focus. But it's supposed to look like the Marauders map from Harry Potter. And it says, I solemnly swear a lot. I love it. I had to get it. I kind of had a haul from Snarky Crafter. I bought a bunch of needle minders because I just couldn't say no to them. That was one of them. And then the other thing I started, I think I talked about this last week, I'm not sure. Actually, it might not have started yet by then, because I think it started, I think the first pattern dropped on Sunday, but this is this year's Stiach Along, which they've dubbed the Stiach Alone since nobody can go anywhere. And I've only done the border, but the pattern has a picture of Hugh Laurie as Dr. House from House MD, and it says, bless this house, and then his face. And it uses 5 or 6, I think it's 6 different colors in a gradient palette. There's going to be some thread blending, so instead of just using solid colors, you're using 2 strands, but you might use, I'm doing a green palette, so I might use 1 strand of 989 and 1 strand of 3881 and stitch them together, and that gives you this really cool blend effect that happens. Part of his face is in there, is in Clue 1. I just haven't gotten to it yet. There's some fractional stitches and what she calls long diagonal stitches that I need to, she did an explainer video, and I get it, but I want to be totally clear so I don't have to fix it. And then my needle minder is from that same haul from Snarky Crafters, And it says, so you got a knife and a needle there crossed, and it says, I stitch so I don't stab people. And that's true. No, it's not true. I would never stab somebody. But sometimes you want to, right? So that's that pattern, the Stiacha Long. There's a group on Facebook, Stiacha Long 2020. There's a fan group for people who are into the Stiacha Longs. I've sort of participated in most of them. I missed the last 2 years, but you know, I have a lot of their patterns. I'll get to them eventually. And then the last thing, this is, again, the last project I spent any time on again this week is actually, maybe I haven't touched it since I recorded because I don't remember. Oh, I didn't. Okay. This is my blackwork embroidery. This is from Peppermint Purple. It's the 2020 blackwork sampler, weekly blackwork sampler. So every week we get a new block. I finished the first row. So this is the first 5 weeks of design, blackwork designs, and I'm following the color map that she prescribes in the pattern. Some people aren't because they're more of an artist, I guess. But this is my first project, and I would rather have somebody tell me what to do than kind of guess at what I could pull off. But I found I was missing this color, and I hadn't done this one yet. So I dug through all of my kits that I have like ready to go for different projects, and I found the color for block 1, and I went ahead and stitched it. Again, these are really quick, they take like an hour. And then I found that color. So I've got the whole first row done. I hope you can see that each block is a different color. I have pulled out the color for this block and this block. I'll grab these two and then try to get them done this week sometime. They're on week 20. That came out. The new patterns come out on Wednesdays, so you know, the new week 20 came out yesterday, which is this block here. So I'm trying not to get caught up too quickly so that I don't have to wait. But given how many projects I have on the go, I don't know, maybe that's not a bad idea. And if I really get the itch to do more black work, I can always work on my border while I'm waiting for the blocks. My needle minder, I've changed this a couple of times. My needle minder, I went with, this is another from my Snarky Crafter haul, and we got a nice épée there, right? And a needle. And the mask of the Dread Pirate Roberts that says, As You Stitch. Princess Bride. I love that movie. You know how you have those movies that are just, no matter what your mood is, it will fix everything just to watch it? The Princess Bride is one of those for me. Yeah. So that's what I've been working on this week. I don't think I touched Animal Almanac this week. I really need to work on it and make an effort to at least finish January. It's amazing. I had this whole plan for how I was going to stay caught up on it, and it just didn't happen. I think tomorrow, the second clue for the Chinese Zodiac pattern from Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery comes out tomorrow. So there's a good chance I'm probably just going to switch to that and work on that exclusively because I'm in love with that pattern. They gave us a sneak peek, and it looks like we're going to be doing one of the corners this month, and I'm excited about that. So that's probably the only other thing I'm going to work on this week. I have a strong urge to actually finish things. So I'm not really interested in rotating through whips that are not anywhere near done. But if I can finish a couple of things, then I can switch to a different whip and focus on that one. And yeah, I really want to finish things, but since I only want to cross stitch right now, that means I need to finish cross stitch projects. And I'm Not as fast a cross stitcher as I am a knitter, but I just don't want to knit right now. I'll get my knitting mojo back. We all do. We, you know, these things happen in cycles. I don't really have anything else. What do you think? Should I take up tatting? Macrame? I don't know. I'm looking at my pile o stash, which is behind my camera, and gosh, it would really be nice to just work through a lot of that quickly. I want to knit some socks. I need to finish those mittens. When I finish those mittens, I will have my favorite sock needles, and then I can knit socks. Just tube after tube of self-striping yarn. Just get through all of that. I mean, nothing's faster. It's great for watching TV. I don't have to watch my hands if I'm knitting a stockinette tube. I mean, I have to pay attention for where to put the waste yarn. I like, when I do self-striping socks, I do an afterthought heel. I call it a forethought afterthought heel because I put in waste yarn, which I then pick out later to pick up stitches to make the heel. It preserves the striping pattern of the self-striping yarn. Otherwise, if you do like a heel flap or something, it interrupts the stripe pattern because you're not knitting on the front of the sock while you're knitting the heel. And I never like that look. This way I can keep the stripes good, and it's just more pleasing to my eye. And my socks aren't very big, so, you know, the more of the stripe pattern I can preserve, the more I can really show off the stripe pattern. And, yeah, I don't know. I'm probably going to end it here because I don't have any other projects that I worked on this week, and I don't have any other plans, just what I talked about today. I might bring my wheel out to spin while I watch TV. My husband and I just caught up on Westworld. We watched all of season 3 over the last couple of days. And I think next up we're going to try to watch How to Get Away with Murder. We haven't seen any of the current season, and tonight is the season finale, or series finale, because it's the last season. I've been spoiled on a couple of things. I think he's managed to avoid it. But 15 episodes, and we'll probably get through a good chunk of it today. I just have to decide if I'm going to be knitting while we watch it, spinning, or cross-stitching. Cross-stitching, I actually have to watch what I'm doing because I got to see where I'm sticking the needle. Knitting, depending on what I'm working on, I can do without watching my hands. Spinning, I definitely don't have to wash my hands. The only times I have to watch my hands when I'm spinning is if it breaks and I have to restart it. Knitting's a lot easier to put down. Maybe I'll be knitting today. Wouldn't that be fun? I should work on those mittens. Their color work. They're called the Sea Mineral Mittens by Spilly Jane. It's a free pattern. It's one of her only free patterns. But worth it. Her stuff is amazing. She's totally worth every penny if you decide to buy any of her patterns. Yeah, I'll work on those. I'll get them done. Or at least get the first one done and start the second one, so I can free up those needles. It's a funny thing. I started these mittens like 2 years ago, but I live in Florida. I get cold weather for, all told, collectively, if I count up all the days that are cold enough that I might need a mitten, over a period of 5 years, I might get 30 days that I need mittens. I really need to move somewhere cold so I can enjoy my knitting. And encourage myself to knit more, because once it starts getting hot, the last thing I want to do is work on mittens. I really like knitting. I like knitting mittens. They're fun. And I love color work. See, I need to move to Scandinavia. I don't know, Norway or Sweden or something. We'll see. That would be a challenge. Might be worth it, but it would be a challenge. You'll have to have a good reason. All right, I'm going to end it there. You don't need to listen to me ramble. I'm still trying to figure out how to get myself to talk at the camera instead of at the screen. So I've been looking back and forth. I'm sure that's really distracting. I hope it's not horrible. But anyway, okay. That's it for this week. I hope everybody's doing really well, staying safe, staying healthy, wearing your masks when you go out, because remember, when you wear your mask, you are protecting everybody around you. Okay? And, okay. I will see you next week, and have a good one.